So these are the DBAL D2 replica lasers out of China. Now, these are supposedly a replica, copy, knockoff, whatever you want to call it, of one of the current issue Marine Corps units, but I haven't been able to verify that. And a few things in going over the details. These are somewhat China-specific airsoft products to replace or supplement the DBAL lasers, which have been in circulation there, available through a few different sellers on Alibaba.com, anywhere from $80 to $250 each. Based on the samples that I had seen, it looked to me like on the older versions, everybody had the same thing, and they were definitely not waterproof. Looking at everything up close, they're definitely not waterproof. For indoor paintball and airsoft games, it's fine. Usually those are going to be done in non-harsh weather conditions, because especially anybody in Asia who owns night vision equipment just doesn't want to have that stuff out in bad weather. In the United States, of course, there's a lot of people who want these sorts of items for actual tactical use, and the import stuff has been of questionable utility under situations like that in the U.S. Hence, there's this new crossover market in higher quality airsoft stuff, Asian market stuff coming over, usually in small batches, small source sellers from Hong Kong, that sort of a thing. One of them, of course, is this version of the DBAL D2. Now, this one's had some upgrades and modifications specific to the Chinese market, and we'll go over a couple of those. The big thing is that they're trying to use fewer proprietary parts in the internals, the screws, stuff like that. That's kind of where the Chinese are trying to go with their versions of these things. The other thing is they finally decided to step a little bit more into stuff being heavy duty, water resistant, weather resistant, that sort of thing. So we're going to go over controls a little bit on these and what it does and what its features are. As we look a little more up close, what we're going to notice is there's a lot of stuff going on this whole unit. I'm finding buttons, levers, adjustments all over the place, right? Okay, so on the back, we've got a rotation switch. It turns all the way around. The position you see it in right now is the off position, okay? LV and HV are apparently our settings for the infrared. What that will mean is you get an infrared laser emission only. You'll get nothing else coming out of the unit. Now, for civilian market sales, there's been some regulations that require some sort of an indicator to show that a laser is on. Normally, if it's a visible laser, the indicator is the laser itself. If it's a non-visible laser, they have to put some other light on here. So here we've got a little red indicator light that tells us that the IR laser is active. Other than that, it would be not visible to the naked eye. The IR laser will appear as either white on the digital night vision equipment, or it will appear as light green on normal starlight style night vision equipment. Basically, an IR laser is going to show up the same as white light through the night vision equipment, and then not be visible to the naked eye. The other laser color we get on these things is green. Now, when we look at the front of this, we're going to see that there's a little two-headed diode on there. Now, it's kind of neat that they have this little tethered cover going on, and with this little tethered rubber cover, it helps add to our water resistance. Okay, so what will happen is when you get your green laser, we're going to use the other side of the switch assembly on this. So we're going to flip this all the way over to, I think LP starts giving me a green laser. Yeah, so that's going to give me a green laser. We're going to have the indicator light come on that tells me this is on. That's kind of like a little diagnostic light. And of course we have a green laser. Not quite sure what the wattage is. There was no documentation included with this, but I'm guessing it's, maybe a 5 to 20 watt laser. Green lasers tend to run a little bit more wattage than or milliwatt, I'm sorry, 5 to 10 milliwatt. They tend to run a little bit more than the reds in order to be visible. As we would flip over to another position, we have the light. Now the light also has a tethered cover. It's an LED bulb, and it's relatively robust because of that. And so we would have the light. Now I can tell you that in a daylight environment right now, that's pretty bright, but it's not killer bright, okay? But it's good for illuminating a room. The other settings we're going to have is, it's interesting that the light can run 2 different levels of brightness, and then there's another setting for the light with the laser in the middle of it. So here we can see how that goes. But when this thing's all timed in together, usually at a distance, that light will have the laser in the middle of it. So that's kind of interesting. The 2 lasers, the infrared and the visible, are tied in together. So you'll see how inside of that housing was kind of drilled, and the 2 lasers are embedded in that. They were sealed with some sort of a polymer sealer stuff. So when you adjust the housing, this little thing, best I can tell, is a counter spring for that, and you could probably adjust the tension on that a little bit by tightening that screw. Here we've got our windage adjustment, and then we have our elevation adjustment. Now that depends a little bit on how you would mount this thing. The default mounting on this would be on the top of a rail. And here's another little feature that's somewhat unique to this one that they don't all come out with, but the Canis Latrans model out of Guangzhou, China, and I may have pronounced that wrong, has it. This is a mount for one of their proprietary sites, which is very similar to the Trigicon RMR, I believe. It may also fit one of the Doctor sites. Now, the Chinese versions all take a battery. They don't do anything with tritium. But whether or not the bolt pattern and screw pattern is going to fit the U.S. market, Trigicons or Doctor sites, we don't know. But that's what this little mounting surface is here. Now, the traditional way of mounting this, of course, is going to involve using a Picatinny rail with a throw lever system, which a lot of times when these come packaged, this will be separate. You might want to use some Loctite to put those screws in there. And it's going to bump into this, but hopefully, you know, your rail thing is opened up enough for that to work. When you're using this with a rail system, the military guys do stick them on a side rail. Just realize that your windage then becomes elevation, your elevation becomes windage. At moderate distances, I don't think you're doing anything majorly wrong with that. The other thing is whether or not the lasers are fully timed in with each other, that's kind of iffy. One of the things I'm noticing that the switch assembly on this will not let you do is it will not let you turn both lasers on simultaneously in order to test whether or not they're timed in with each other. So that's one of the issues I kind of had with this. And that's why I'm not going to recommend or disrecommend this. You're talking about risking it about roughly $100 to get one of these from an overseas supplier, maybe $150, $180, up to $250 to get one from a U.S. supplier to do a full evaluation on it. But that is one of the things, that the visible and IR laser, you can't turn them on simultaneously to time them in with each other. That was done at the factory. That's also going to be one of your price differences between fully tested units, the US-made units, and the Asian-made ones, and some of that kind of stuff. You also have momentary switches on the unit itself, which is this press button. The press button is not disabled when the tethered cord, when the little pressure pad thing is attached. So on some of them, what happens is when you plug this in, it disables the onboard switch. On this, they will work independently of each other. One of the other things I noticed is that when I turn this off, it will work once momentarily while that thing is in the off position. Well, maybe I had that. Oh no, I flipped it all the way around. See, that's one of the things you can kind of run into with this. But it was, yeah, see, it'll work momentarily like it's charging a capacitor, and then once it's no longer charging a capacitor, glass or it stays off. So there it is, the DBAL D2 from Canis Latrans of China. You're going to see these on the market in the U.S. as another alternative to IR laser use with night vision equipment, and of course a visible LED flashlight. It's going to use the CR123 battery, a relatively common battery, also known as a surefire battery. Does not use AA's or AAA's. It uses a CR123. It is weather resistant. I would not call this submersible, but it's ruggedized, which is a step in the right direction for the those who can't afford some of the U.S.-made stuff and are looking at the Asian market night vision compatible accessories for security and tactical use.